Morning, Penny.
Good morning. Here's your post, Mrs. Boswell.
Thank you. How's your mother today?
Her arm's a lot better, thank you.
Good.
Mr. Boswell still away?
Yes. He's in Brussels on business for a few days.
By the way, the Deputy Governor asked if he could see you as soon as you came in.
Where's he now?
In the discipline office, talking to the chief, Mrs. Armitage.
Well, as soon as he likes.
Yes, madam.
Come in. Morning, Mr. Radley.
Good morning, Governor.
That sounds very formal.
Have you seen the papers today?
No, not yet.
Well, I think perhaps you'd better read this.
The health of Martha Kyle, aged 27, remanded in custody at Stone Park Prison, was said yesterday to be causing concern. Miss Kyle, a self-styled revolutionary, is charged with complicity in the raid on Beach Street Magistrates' Court, in which an attempt was made to force the release of an accused urban guerrilla leader, Norman Lipsky.
That's the raid where the policeman was killed and another was injured.
Yes, she's charged with smuggling guns in for the men, but this is only a rehash of the original report.
Yeah, it's the end of the article that's important. Her solicitor, Leo Stenhill, claims that she's lost nearly a stone in weight over the last 5 weeks.
And that she's showing signs of nervous exhaustion. I have no doubt that excessive strictness and the active animosity of the prison staff are the direct cause, said Mr. Stenhill. There's been nothing in the medical report about this.
Well, obviously, none of the medical staff thinks it's as serious as it's made out in that article.
She did lose weight the first week she was here.
Oh, that's common enough amongst prisoners on remand, especially for the first time.
Yes, she lost 5, nearly 6 pounds. But by her examination last week, that appears to have stopped.
So she exaggerated it to her solicitor and he passed it on?
Apparently. You've seen the Kyle girl. What do you think of her?
Rather antagonistic, self-assured. Certainly not nervous.
I agree. I'd say she knows exactly what she's doing. She can't expect to work up much sympathy for herself by a story which could be so easily disproved.
No, at least it's only appeared in one paper. So far.
Yes. I'd hate to be mixed up in a campaign quite so early on.
Well, Martha Kyle's a very unlikely martyr. Still, I'm glad the chief officer mentioned it to me.
Mrs. Armitage? Why didn't she report it to me?
Oh, she knew I'd discuss it with you.
And she also knew that you'd been in the prison service 10 years and I only 1 month. You needn't cushion me, Mr. Radley. I'm well aware that many people don't think that my experience in approved schools is sufficient qualification for this kind of a security prison.
Oh, you've brought a new, more enlightened approach with you, which I believe is urgently needed. But if I may say so, older officers like Mrs. Armitage have yet to be convinced of its value.
In a prison is rehabilitation.
The whole argument is how it is to be achieved.
Well, there's so many theories. I suppose every new governor has her pet ideas. I shall just have to play it by ear for the moment. Morning, Mrs. Armitage.
Good morning, madam.
Morning.
I've taken the liberty of sending for this.
What is it?
It's the refused food book. I know you sign it every day, so you will have noticed that on the 4th and the 7th and the 12th, the Kyle girl is marked as having refused 1 or more meals.
Yes, I had noticed.
And on the first week she was on remand, just before you arrived, she refused food entirely over 2 24-hour periods and was seen by the medical officer. That goes some way to account for the loss of weight mentioned in the newspaper.
Thank you, Mrs. Armitage.
It is well to be prepared, madam. Of course, there is the other thing.
Yes?
Her solicitor implied that she's being ill-treated. I suggest we interview the girl and the officers concerned at once. If necessary, an inquiry.
Oh, I think you're making a little too much of it, Mrs. Armitage. I'm seeing the girl, of course, this morning. Why, is something wrong?
I'm not so concerned with the girl as the officers on my staff.
No accusation has been made.
With respect, madam, I have seen this before. A rumour of ill-treatment starts. There are always some prisoners who will take advantage. We should crack down immediately before it gets out of hand.
I have no intention of cracking down.
May I speak frankly?
Of course.
A prison can only function in an atmosphere of strict discipline. As soon as that is relaxed, you're bound to have trouble. And there's already one wing where the uniformed staff have been completely undermined.
You mean the North Wing?
Well, yes, madam. The Assistant Governor allows the women far too much freedom.
Freedom to talk and move about in a confined space can hardly be too much.
When the trouble comes, that's where it'll begin.
Well, I don't happen to agree with you, Mrs. Armitage. As you know, the floors are being filled in North Wing to make it structurally safer.
The governor felt that we could use that to allow the women more freedom of movement within their own sections.
Surely you agree that this is a good thing?
In theory, perhaps, madam. But in practice, they'd have to prove that they could be trusted.
Well, we'll see. I'm starting my morning tour there now. Perhaps you'd like to come with me.
Very good, madam.
Thank you.
What's going on?
It's Peggy Abbot, Chief. She's acting up again.
What's wrong, Miss Harker?
Well, I don't understand it, Warden. First she refused to go on a working party. Then when I said she would stay behind if she wasn't well, she collapsed. She wasn't anyone near.
Peggy. Peggy, look at me. You know who this is? Now stop this. Whatever's the matter, can't be settled here. Now come on, come along. Go to Miss Harker's office.
This isn't a sideshow. Break it off. If you've got any work, get them started.
Now, what's all this about?
First of all, she wouldn't come out of her cell, madam. Then when Miss Harker said to leave the door open, she came out but refused to go on her work party.
Why? Where's she assigned?
Canteen cleaning.
Don't you like the work?
I'm not going to do it.
Have you asked for a transfer?
I'm not going to do it. You can't make me do it.
You realize that if you're not reasonable, we must put you on a charge.
Well, hit me then. Come on, hit me. Make me do it.
Has she been like this before?
Oh, once or twice, but never so bad. Usually she listened to reason.
Very well. Put her on report.
The Kyle girl is here, madam.
I'll see her first.
Martha Kyle.
Morning, Martha. Normally, I would have come to see you in the remand wing, but after the article in the paper this morning, I want to make it a little more formal. It said that you have lost a considerable amount of weight, almost a stone. Now, I don't know why this wasn't noticed by the nursing staff. Did you tell them about it? Chief officers also pointed out that you actually refused to eat on several occasions.
I did it first because the food was so awful. But now I eat all I can get.
Yes, well, I'm going to ask the doctor to put you on a special nutritional diet. It also suggested that you feel that you're being badly treated. Have you any specific complaints?
Wouldn't do any good.
Why not?
If you're accused of killing a pig, all the screws have got it in for you.
You won't help yourself by being offensive. The rules here are very simple. I advise you to cooperate with us. In any case, while you're on remand, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty, but you're still subject to prison discipline.
My solicitor's waiting to see me.
Very well. You can tell him that after the interview, you're to report to the doctor for a complete examination.
It's almost impossible to remain impartial.
She certainly makes it difficult.
Someone like that. Lying, cheating, stealing. It's all the same. They've no respect for anything.
Well, this isn't the time to discuss it. Who's next?
Weeks, Georgina. Application to see the governor. Weeks, Georgina.
You haven't forgotten that, dear. One good turn, eh?
You'd better get her back to remand.
Well, it's about my sister.
Haven't you heard from her yet?
No.
And I thought maybe I could go and stay with her when I'm discharged. And, well...
You want permission to write an extra letter, is that it?
Yes, begging your pardon.
I don't see why not, Mrs. Weeks. You do realize that you'll have to pay for the extra stamp yourself.
Oh.
Still, if that's a problem, I expect we can advance you one. And I'll ask the welfare officer to check with your sister and see that she's all right.
Thank you. God bless you.
Don't you worry, Mrs. Weeks.
No, not no more.
Who's next?
Peever, Lily. Application to see the governor. Perhaps you don't know our Lily, madam. She's been in and out for years and she's work shy. She keeps making applications. Books to see the doctor, the oculist, the chaplain, something every day. So that she'll be taken off work without losing any pay.
I see. All right.
Eva? Lily?
Lily Heaver, 47192, madam.
Well, what can I do for you, Lily? You've heard the charge. Have you anything to say? If you object to working in the canteen...
Not the canteen, lady, just working.
Am I to understand that you refuse to work at all?
Kitchen cleaning or sewing shop, that's nothing.
Well, I'm sorry we can't provide anything suitable for you. You haven't been in trouble before, but you leave me no alternative but to fine you 2 days' loss of pay.
Loss of pay? What are you talking about? Is that justice? I should have known better. You don't get it in a whitey prison.
Very well, since you seem to be so determined. 2 days solitary confinement.
Take her away. That's the best way to handle them, madam.
I'm not so sure.
I'm afraid it's true. The Kyle girl has lost over a stone and all. Nearly 8 pounds since she was examined last week.
How could it have happened, Doctor?
Well, I can't find anything medical to account for it.
She went on a hunger strike for 2 days. Could it have been the result of that?
No. That was weeks ago, and she's been eating regularly since then. Anyway, I've taken blood and urine samples. Perhaps they'll tell us something.
I thought she was exaggerating. What disturbs me is that she knew about it and didn't say anything to anyone except her solicitor.
Yes. And they could make capital out of that. The fact that none of us noticed anything. And it could get worse. She'll have to go to the hospital wing for observation. Now, I've also examined Peggy Abbot in solitary 1.
And?
Perfectly healthy. Well able to stand solitary confinement.
Did you find her obstructive?
On the contrary, very cooperative. As a matter of fact, I wondered what on earth she was doing in solitary. Was she violent?
Well, if you consider nearly braining me with a vase violent... Still, she puzzles me.
In what way?
I've seen violence in women before. Usually they can't stop themselves, but she seemed controlled somehow, as if what she really wanted was to provoke a reaction. Come in.
Excuse me, madam. Mr. Stenhill wonders if you could spare him a minute.
Stenhill?
Martha Kyle's solicitor.
Oh, yes. All right, Penny.
I know him slightly. He's rather a tricky customer. I wouldn't exactly say that he was dishonest, but may I suggest, be careful.
I have no intention of discussing her case.
No, of course.
I shall simply answer questions about her health and her welfare and so on. But I would appreciate it if you'd stay, Doctor.
Certainly.
Good day, Mrs. Boswell.
Good day, Mr. Stenhill. You've met Dr. Mays, senior medical resident.
Oh, yes, several times. How do you do?
Oh?
I'm delighted you're here, Doctor.
Do sit down.
Oh, thank you.
Would you like some tea?
No, thank you very much. I don't want to take up very much of your time. I really came about that unfortunate article in the paper this morning. You did happen to see the...
Yes, I saw it.
Perhaps I shouldn't have said anything, but I was concerned about my client.
Naturally.
She tells me that she has had no real medical attention.
Well, I've just put her on a high nutritional diet and a course of vitamins.
You hadn't noticed her condition before today?
Well, nothing was apparent at her last examination.
So you confirm there has been a rapid and serious deterioration in Miss Carr's condition?
Well, there's been an appreciable loss of weight over a short period, but I wouldn't say that it was serious, nor would I indeed describe it as a condition.
And what do you think has caused it?
I'm not in a position to say.
Isn't it a fact that mental stress can cause this effect?
It can, but I don't believe that in this case.
Why not, Mrs. Boswell?
She has shown no real sign of undue stress. She seems self-contained. And has behaved very well so far.
So far? How did you expect her to behave?
You mustn't twist my words, Mr. Stenhill.
I'm sorry, I can only speak for what I see. She seems to me to have changed, to be highly nervous, almost frightened.
She may allow herself to appear so to you. After all, she has a serious trial coming up.
That's the whole point, isn't it? There's been so much bad publicity. In a case like this, there is very little sympathy for the accused.
I can assure you that this does not affect the way she is treated in this prison.
Must she be watched so strictly? She tells me that she is escorted everywhere, checked every hour of the night.
Oh, you must know, Mr. Stenhill, that that is routine in the circumstances.
And can you honestly say that your own attitude has not been influenced by these circumstances?
Yes, I can honestly. She's just a prisoner on remand.
But what of the officers in charge of her?
Whatever offense an inmate may be accused of, she is treated strictly according to how she behaves in this prison.
Well, yes,
and
yes,
that's
of course,
as much as I'm prepared to say at the moment. Will you forgive me? I'm rather busy.
Well, thank you for being so frank with me, Mrs. Boswell. I'm delighted to see that she is in such good hands. I'm sorry to have taken up so much of your time. Good day.
Good day, Mr. Stenhill. Hello? Brussels? Mr. Boswell? Yes, of course. Bill. No, I'm fine. How did you... Oh, this morning's paper. Yes, there has been something else. I spoke to her solicitor foolishly. I shouldn't have said anything. He's completely distorted everything I've said. No, it's not too bad. No problems. What about you? Everything all right? Oh, good. What? Oh, of course I do. I miss you, too. Thank you for ringing, darling. Bye.
Hunting for the killer of a young German girl who was stabbed and thrown from a train outside London in July. Think they may a Scandinavian woman who's been
Hello. Mrs. Boswell speaking. Oh, good evening, sir. Yes, I have read them. Would you excuse me a minute? I'm sorry about that. Yes, I did. It was substantially what I said, but completely out of context. I'm sending a report to the Home Office, and so is Dr. Mays. Yes, I know it could, but I had no idea it could be used like that against me. No, of course, I won't speak to anyone else. Thank you, sir. Goodbye. No, any further statement must come from the press office.
They got hold of Dr. May's home number. They've been phoning him half the night.
Yes, I know.
And the morning papers are only reprints of last night's story. Unfortunately, the medical report makes it seem as if some of the accusations may have a basis in fact.
Stenhill's version of what I said is close enough for me not to be able to deny it. I didn't mean that I didn't care whether she suffered or not, nor that the officers in charge of her were unusually strict.
Well, of course not.
If I say that I have no right to reply, they'll assume that I'm hiding something. Now, I don't care for myself. The staff must wonder why I don't defend them. Governor, I told you I wasn't available. Who? Victor Hartnell. Yes, I'll speak to him. Good day, Mr. Hartnell. Yes, I do know. I agree. It's most unfortunate. No, of course you can see her. Any day. But not in the morning. I'm never free then. I'll wait to hear from you. Goodbye.
Hartnell, the MP?
Yes.
You might have known he'd be the first to get in on it.
Surely he doesn't support the kind of violent anarchy that girl represents?
No, but he's made his reputation as the champion of the underdog, and he can smell national press coverage.
It's all so cheap and obvious. I suspected that this was an attempt to win public sympathy for Martha Kyle. Didn't think I'd let myself be used quite so easily.
Could have happened to anyone, Governor.
I'd hoped that my lack of experience wouldn't show quite so soon.
I should have advised you not to talk to Stenhill, so perhaps it can be said to be my fault.
I didn't support your appointment, Mr. Radley, in order that you could take the blame for any failing of mine.
I think you'll find that everyone will support you.
Do they realize that if her condition doesn't improve, there may have to be an inquiry?
They're prepared for that. Well, what are you going to do?
About Martha Kyle? Certainly not make any more statements. I'm going to leave it to the doctor. I've got other things to get on with. But first I want to make sure that there's no connection between her and that girl in solitary. Hello, Lily. Can I come in?
Of course, madam.
Food all right?
Oh, yes, madam. It's improved ever so much since you've been here.
Oh, I can't take any credit for that. Now, who's this?
My friend, Nora. She's very shy.
I see. Well, that's very pretty. Did you do it?
No, madam. Nora made it for me.
Really? Do you share together?
No, madam. Nora's in 14 with old Georgie and Mrs. Weeks.
And who's on the other side?
That Peggy, the blackie.
Oh, yes. How do you get on with her?
Well, madam, I don't not get on with her.
No, she doesn't seem very happy. What do you think's wrong with her?
Not for me to say, madam. I mean, she's a bit stuck up, isn't she? She keeps herself to herself.
Yes. Well, don't let me interrupt you.
You're right, Nona. Why don't you say something?
I think she's nice.
Well, she has to be, isn't she? She's in trouble.
Thank you, Mrs. Armitage. How are you, Peggy? There's no need to be frightened. Why don't you sit down? Well, I'm going to sit, because I want to talk to you, and it's been a rather long day. I know it's hard not to resent it when you're being punished. But you see, a prison is run on certain very simple rules. And if you persist in breaking them...
What are you talking about, lady? I know about rules. I know about punishment.
What I want you to understand is why you're being punished.
You're talking crazy. I am here and you're going to hurt me.
Nobody's going to hurt you.
You've been waiting to get me here.
Why do you say that?
Just because I'm black.
Everyone is equal here. You won't be treated differently from anybody else.
You don't treat me right. Well, what are you waiting for? Get it over. I'm here. You're going to beat me? Well, come on then, hit me. Hit me then. Come. Ah!
She's just out to draw attention to herself, madam. Cause trouble.
It's probably a question of how she's approached. If you go storming in...
If anyone upset Peggy Abbott, it was me. And I'm the one who'll decide how she's to be treated. And that's not meant as a criticism against the prison officers, Mrs. Armitage.
Very good, madam.
I realize that there's a fundamental disagreement between the welfare office and some of the uniformed staff on the treatment of prisoners. But I want you to remember the strain that the staff are working under, particularly at a time like this.
Yes, Governor.
Yes, Governor.
Now, what can you tell me about Peggy Abbott, Miss Clark?
Well, as you know, she's in for 6 months for child neglect.
Yes.
But I'm afraid our records are very scanty. She's literate. The psychotherapist notes that her response was negative, but she's considered to be above average intelligence.
Governor. Yes, Mr. Radley. He's here already? No, of course I'll see him. Will you bring him up? Oh, and would you ask the chief officer to see that Martha Kyle is brought to my office? Thank you. I'm afraid we'll have to stop now. I have an MP visiting me. Miss Clark, I'd like you to check up with Peggy Abbot's relatives. I want to know more about that girl. There's something there that I can't put my finger on.
Yes, of course.
And give it some priority, will you?
Yes, Governor.
Is this MP Victor Hartnell?
Yes, it is.
Hope it goes well.
It's not official.
Well, he couldn't possibly believe all those things you're supposed to have said. No one who knows you could. Any of us would tell him.
Thank you, Miss Harker. But I can't discuss it.
Sorry, Governor.
Now, once the press has got hold of something like this, it's terribly important that there should be no suggestion of a cover-up, you see. That's the main point that I'm trying to assess. There. Very good of you to let me come at such short notice, Mrs. Boswell.
I really didn't expect you today.
If a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing at once. I'm sure none of us wants this affair to get out of hand.
No.
I checked with the Home Office before calling you.
Yes, I know. Do sit down.
Oh, thank you.
Martha Kyle is on her way here.
Oh, good. Perhaps I could have a word with you before she arrives? Thank you, Mr. Radley. You realize that my visit is entirely unofficial, Mrs. Boswell?
Yes, of course.
I'm here purely in my capacity as a private member of Parliament. Anything you may tell me will be treated as confidential.
I really have nothing to say.
I gather from my informant at the Home Office that you already feel that you've been misrepresented.
That is correct.
Well, it can happen to anyone in public life. I can testify to that. But I have been asked by her solicitor and other people acting on her behalf to look into her treatment and see if there is any cause for concern. Are you aware of any such cause?
None at all.
I see. We're dealing with a potentially explosive situation, Mrs. Boswell. It is a case in which justice must not only be done, but be seen to be done. May I see her alone?
I'm afraid that's not possible. I have to be present and send a report of everything that's said to the Home Office.
Oh, well, this meeting will be useless unless she tells me what she wants to without fear of contradiction.
I'm merely an observer. I cannot speak unless asked a direct question.
Oh, forgive me.
Perhaps you'd like to take my place. I'll sit over here.
Oh, thank you.
Come in. Mother, this is Mr. Hartnell.
Do please sit down, Miss Kyle. Now, first of all, do you know who I am?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to know that you are absolutely free to answer. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Your solicitor has made a complaint about the way you've been treated while you've been on remand here. Is there anything you want to tell me? You have lost a considerable amount of weight.
Yes.
Are you receiving medical attention?
Since yesterday, pills and vitamins.
Ah, now that interests me. Why was nothing done until yesterday?
It was only yesterday that Mr. Stenhill insisted that they look after me.
But surely you were examined by the medical staff before that. Well, didn't they notice anything?
They said I wasn't worth bothering about.
Did you tell the governor? What did she say?
She said I'd be disciplined if I caused trouble.
Is that all?
She said if I wasn't careful, I'd be put on a special diet.
Yeah, but you have been eating.
Oh, yes, all I can get, but the food's so awful you can hardly swallow it.
Prisoners on remand may have their own food sent in from outside if they ask for it.
Did you know that?
I did ask. They told me what I'd get if I caused extra work for them.
Oh.
The screws, the warders.
You mean they threatened you?
They're always telling me what they'll do if I get convicted.
What will they do?
Make me wish that I'd been hanged. But it can't be worse than it is now, shouting at me, banging on the door at night to keep me awake.
Are you aware of this?
No, and I find it hard to believe.
You don't believe it because you don't want to believe it. You never see anything. Look, pulling at me and kicking. Who do you think did that?
These are serious allegations. I believe that the prison has a case to answer.
The bruising looks bad, but it's neither deep nor extensive.
How could they have been caused, Doctor?
Well, the bruising on the arms could have been caused by pinching or gripping tightly, but the wounds on the shoulder and the back of the legs, well, they look like a kick or a blow. See, only one thing's really certain. They've all appeared pretty recently.
The story appeared in the newspapers yesterday morning. Are you telling me that she has been physically ill-treated since then?
Well, the symptoms have appeared since then.
What about the loss of weight?
I'm afraid it's accelerating. I'm having her meal served in the hospital wing, and the nursing sister checks to make sure that she is eating, but it still continues.
Mrs. Armitage? I've just been speaking to Sister, madam. These bruises on Martha Kyle. She did them herself, of course.
I can't say that.
But you must.
I think we must leave it to the doctor, Mrs. Armitage.
All I can say is that it's possible, even likely. But if they were self-inflicted, she'd have to be capable of great determination and ability to stand pain.
She's capable of that, all right. She's capable of anything.
Well, I try not to make such judgments. Right. Good night, Mrs. Boswell.
Good night, Doctor. I'm sorry, madam. It's been a shock.
I understand.
If only we kept a 24-hour watch on her as I asked.
No doubt there are many things we could have done, but our job now is to see that nothing else happens and that the staff is completely cleared.
Of course, madam.
Good night, Mrs. Armitage.
Good night. What's going on here? Why are all these women in free association?
It's allowed here, Chief.
Do you know what the time is? Get all those not enrolled in craft or education classes back in their cells. At once!
Right now, Chief.
Mrs. Armitage, what right have you to interfere with my orders?
I hadn't realised you were here, Miss Harker.
Give it back! Give it back!
Ralph, leave me alone, you're back.
What's the matter?
I know you did.
Nothing, Chief. It's only old Georgie creating.
She took my new box of matches. They was between us on the seat. She stole them.
Oh, never. Nora, I can tell you.
Turn out your pockets.
Mrs. Armitage.
You're not going to treat me like Martha Kyle.
Turn out your pockets. And the other one.
There. You see? They're mine, all right. Never been touched. Bill?
Hello, darling.
I thought you were in Brussels.
After what you said on the phone, I made a point of getting the English papers today.
Oh, darling.
I had a few words with Paul before he went out.
You weren't angry.
No. Though I did tell him that as your son, he might do you the courtesy of not adding to the strain on you. It seems that he and his student friends are beginning to agitate about this girl's treatment.
What are they saying?
Mental sadism, inhuman medical treatment, and so on. What are this Kyle woman and her lawyer really up to?
Well, I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Come on, you needn't go into details.
Well, you remember the outcry after the shooting in the magistrate's court when the policeman was killed?
Yes.
Well, she was seen to pass the guns to the men. Her fingerprints have been found on them.
So she's no chance of getting off. And this whole campaign of how much she's suffering and how badly she's being treated is just to get public sympathy onto her side before the trial. These stories about her being kicked and so on.
You don't believe them?
Now, don't misunderstand me, Faye. I've only read one side.
But it's enough to worry you. Oh, I suppose there are many people who think that I haven't got the experience, that I'm not fit for the job. I suppose they've got every right to.
Now listen, darling, I don't think so. Believe me. All I want is to be sure you know what you're doing. Things are going to get harder for you when and if this investigation starts.
Yes, I know.
When you're in a tough situation, you have to know you can rely on your staff, that you can trust them. Can you?
I think I can. But now I've got to prove to them that they can trust me. They're all looking to me to do something, to find a solution. I haven't got one.
With no reference to me, she ordered the women back to their cells.
I had no idea Miss Harker was there, in view of the way the prisoners were behaving.
Was there a disturbance?
They were in association.
It was time for the evening classes to begin.
It has always been the practice for those not enrolled in classes to be locked up in their cells. If they're not, they just make a noise and interrupt.
Unfortunately, we have nowhere else to put them.
I see. Well, it seems to me there's just been a lack of communication.
Well, there is the business of the matchbox.
Matchbox?
One of the women was accused of stealing a box of matches. Mrs. Armitage forced her to produce it and put her on report.
Well, of course I did. The woman had been stealing.
But it was so trivial, I'd rather have dealt with it myself.
Did you speak to Mrs. Armitage?
Well, I tried to.
In any case, it was too late. The woman accused me of treating her like Martha Kyle.
Well, I believe this just shows the tension that we're all under at the moment. It would be disastrous if it became so obvious to the prisoners that they could take advantage of it.
Very good, madam.
In uniform or out of it, we're all part of the same system. We really must work together.
Yes, Governor.
Come in.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Boswell. I had that report for you.
Please come in. I'd like to hear it. I'd like you both to stay. This may interest you. Please sit down, all of you.
I've been to see Peggy Abbot's children. They're both well and seem to be happy.
Good.
They're being looked after by an uncle and aunt. He's a minister, a very sincere and religious man.
What could he tell you about Peggy?
Well, it appears that her own parents are dead and that she was brought over here on his surety some 5 years ago to assist him, but it didn't work out. Anyway, not long after she arrived, she met her husband, a merchant seaman, and married him against her uncle's wishes.
Is it a happy marriage?
It seemed to be until about 2 years ago. The aunt told me that Peggy's husband said she was a bad wife. She's pretty certain Peggy hasn't seen him for the last 18 months.
What's she been living on?
Odd jobs, I think. Washing up and so on. It was about then that she was reported for going out and leaving the children. The younger one was only 6 months old. She was warned repeatedly and finally charged, and the children put in her uncle's care.
Well, couldn't he have helped her?
It was he who reported her.
Did he bring the children to see her?
The aunt did at first, but he put a stop to it. He said it only upset them.
When I was in North Wing yesterday, I think I should have had a look into Peggy Abbot's cell. If you'd seen this, Mrs. Armitage, what would you have said?
If I'd seen this, I'd have been very worried, madam.
Why?
Well, when a woman shuts herself away like this, putting up curtains, no pictures on the wall to remind her of outside, it's usually a sign that she's going into apathy or is genuinely disturbed.
How many of the women have got pictures of babies and children on the walls?
Well, of Peggy Abbot's age?
Yes.
Or at least 90%.
That's what I thought. These moods, when she's difficult, do they come before or after visiting day?
Well, usually shortly afterwards.
Out? Out of here?
Not out of prison, Peggy, but out of this cell.
Why?
Because I don't think it's right for you.
But I've been waiting. I wait
Now,
not
Peggy,
right.
listen, just listen. I know why you made me lock you in here. You want to be punished. You've been told that what you've done was very wrong and that you must be made to suffer for it. But you've been sent to this prison and nobody has beaten you or starved you.
My uncle.
Did he say that we would hurt you?
And my father. Always he said prison, white prison. When you are bad, you go for punishment.
No, Peggy, you don't come here for punishment, but as punishment. Our job is to make sure that you spend your time usefully, that you know why you're here, and leave determined never to come back again. Don't you think it's been punishment enough that you've been away from your children for so long? You love your children. Why did you leave them alone so often?
No food. I had to have money.
It was said that they were underfed.
But I gave them all I could. Often take nothing from me. I'm a bad mother. My husband, he told me. He knew.
No, I don't think so. I think you were alone and afraid, had learnt not to trust anyone, and didn't know what to do. When you go back to your wing, I'm going to recommend that you go to K Block. That's the prison hostel for nursing and expectant mothers. And there the sister will teach you how to care and feed young children, so that never again will anyone say that you're a bad mother.
But when I leave here, they won't let me have my babies.
Well, that very much depends on how you behave in this prison and what we recommend when you leave.
What's all the fuss about? It's only a lousy box of matches.
It's not the value of the object, but the fact that you were caught stealing.
Give me a chance, madam.
Stealing from another inmate is a miserable offence. I cannot see but how this will go against your remission.
No. Wait. Wait, if I do you a favour, would...
I can't think of any favours you could do me.
Look, I'll make a deal. You want to know about Martha Kyle? Well, you let me off and I'll tell you what she's up to.
I don't make any deals.
No, listen, I can tell you. The first week she was here, she was sent to the doctor twice to go without food. Well, I knew what she was at straight away. I was on cleaning in remand wing then, and a couple of days later I met her and I tipped her off. I told her, look, love, you don't eat for 24 hours, it goes in the refused food book and you're sent to the quack automatic. If you don't want him to stop you, you collect your tray, same as usual. Eat a little, leave a little, and get rid of the rest.
How?
There's hundreds of places. How else are you going to go on hunger strike without anyone knowing?
2 days loss of pay and privileges.
Here's the paper you wanted.
Therefore, there is no substance to the prisoner's accusations whatsoever. So, she's been on a secret hunger strike.
Yes, Mr. Hartnell.
It's corroborated? No, I needn't have said that. I suppose the bruises were self-inflicted?
They were a smoke screen. They appeared at precisely the right time to confuse us and make us concentrate on them.
It's exceedingly fortunate that this was found out today. I was going to speak in the House tonight.
Was going to.
Well, I still may say a few words.
About Martha Kyle?
That might be considered a breach of confidence. No, if the prison service is brought up, I shall describe the splendid conditions that I found here and the high morale.
If you speak on the subject at all, Mr. Hartnell, I would prefer that you describe it as it really is. Depressing, understaffed, the prisoners in inadequate accommodation, and far too little money and planning given to any thought of improvement.
Yes. Yes, of course. And so once again, I thank you for your unreserved cooperation, madam. Good day.
May I keep this?
I'm afraid not.
Naturally, I had no idea that my client was deceiving us all.
Naturally, Mr. Stenhill.
I expect your press office will be making a statement. I shall not be issuing any more. The campaign is over. In any case, I estimate that it will already have served its purpose. Good day.
Good day, Mr. Stenhill.
What a lovely surprise.
Thought I'd come and drive you home.